Hey, hello, my friends. Welcome back. Today, we've got a video that's all about how to hear attack and release times on compressors, and it's going to give you some tools to practice that on your own. You know the drill. If you find these helpful, it really helps me out a lot for you to take a second, give the video a thumbs up, give me a subscribe, drop some comments, and if you have any questions, leave them in the comments. I always try to answer those. All right, let's go. I feel like compression is one of the hardest things to learn about. This is going to be kind of your jump start to understanding what's going on for the first time, maybe. And some of you, if we're being honest, have been doing this for a long time. You still can't hear attack and release on compression. I'm saying that, and I know that because I was an engineer and producing records for like years before I was really actually sure what I was doing. I was mostly just using settings on compressors that I saw other people using and being like, yeah, it's great. But once you can hear it, it makes a huge difference. It's really empowering. It'll change how you produce. It'll change how you record, how you mix. So let's dive in. You're going to want to grab a couple drum loops. Drums are great for learning to hear compression because they're full of transient information, and that's really what we're kind of messing with the most when we're adjusting our attack and release. And they also contain a lot of like groove movement. This is the pattern that you want. This is what it sounds like. You know, just like the very simple boots and cats, like that thing. You can do this in any DAW. You can set up your settings the same way, but let me pull up this compressor and I'm going to show you how to set it up starting off. Auto gain off, auto release off, setting my ratio at 10:1. I'm not going to go into like the scientific definition of this. What you need to know about ratio is it's like the intensity of the compression. So a low ratio, it's going to be really gentle. High ratio, more intense. And we're going to start out with the attack and release set all the way fast. And then you are going to pull down your threshold until you're doing a lot of compression. Now, when you have this initial setting, this is what it sounds like. Okay, we're doing an unreal amount of compression right now. It's like over 30 dB of compression, okay? It sounds terrible, and that's how it's supposed to sound right now. Because what we're trying to do is create enough compression that when we start moving this attack knob, you're really dramatically going to hear what's happening to these drums. I'm going to play back the loop, and I'm just going to start opening this attack knob up. It's set up to where it's grabbing the transient as fast as it possibly can, right? It's trying to clamp down, control those drum hits. As the drum loop plays, I'm going to slow down the attack time, and I want you to hear what happens to the drums, okay? As I open up the attack, you hear the drums get louder. Why are they getting louder even though we're doing so much compression? It's because this setting means that however much time is going to pass before the compressor reacts. You know, at this setting, you're going to get like 30 milliseconds of uncompressed drum sound, full transient coming through, and then it's going to clamp down. As you're opening the attack, you're allowing more punch in. Let me set it to 0, okay? Now listen to how much of the drums come through at 50 milliseconds. You can really hear this snare and the kick get emphasized, right? Those transients are coming through. You're getting that burst of energy, and then the compressor is clamping down. We're doing this in a really extreme setting to emphasize that pop, that transient. But what you need to take away from this is when you are trying to control a transient, right? Let's say you're working on something and there's stuff that's just poking out. The way you're going to control that is with a shorter attack time, right? A faster attack time will grab sooner, so you're going to not get this burst of energy. You're going to get it controlled, right? But you can actually use a compressor to do the opposite of what most people think of for compression, right? You can use a compressor to enhance a transient or to make a transient happen by emphasizing with a slower attack time. This applies to any source. So now when you go to a more gentle setting that you would use, you know, with maybe a 4:1 or 3:1, like a gentler ratio, what you can think about, what you can visualize is you're like, okay, I know that I am emphasizing that even though it's in a more subtle way. It's okay to set up a compressor crazy like this first until you find just the right amount of attack to get the length of punch or the amount of emphasis or the amount of control you want. And then dial back the ratio, pull back the threshold, and you'll get a more subtle version of that effect. Let's talk about release times. I've got a different drum loop. Again, it's 4 on the floor. It's really simple. The difference is we have an open hi-hat on the offbeat, and I feel like that will help us specifically to hear the release time. Auto gain off, ratio 10-1 again, doing a lot of compression. Attack time, we did fast, 5 milliseconds. Basically, the simplest definition of release is how much time is it going to take to go from the compressed signal to not being compressed anymore. That motion creates a volume swell. So the length of that volume swell, back to normal, back to uncompressed, kind of gives you the feel of the release, right? Like a super fast release time will try and swell back up to the regular volume so fast that your ear barely even processes it, right? But a slow release time will create this for lack of a better term. It's going to create a swell, a swoosh. This is what people talk about when a compressor's pumping. You feel the swell come back to 0 before it gets knocked down again by the next hit or whatever, okay? I'm going to start turning the release down to faster, and I want you to think about how it feels. This is more subtle, probably a little harder to hear, but if you pay attention, the release time when it's here and the release time when it's fast, it almost sounds like it's at 2 different tempos. The fast release time feels like the drum loop is getting sped up as you slide it down. Try this for yourself, spend some time, go back and forth. When the compressor is swelling the volume back in, the volume swell makes it feel like that hi-hat is starting later in the groove than it is. When you're dialing something in, what you can think to yourself in terms of release time is how noticeable do I want this volume swell that's going to happen when the compressor lets go? Do I want it to be an effect? Do I want to feel the swoosh of energy? Do I want to feel it almost slow down the sound a little bit? Or do I want it to be as invisible as possible? Do I want it to be fast so that people aren't thinking about what is that What it gets down to is that's a taste decision and a creative decision, right? It's an artistic decision. It's not really a technical decision. And you can always dial these in with these kind of more extreme, noticeable settings and then dial it back to, just a few dB, 3 or 4 dB with a lower ratio. And you know that the attack and release are still going to be enhancing the sounds in that way, but just in a more subtle amount. Just another example of release time for those of you that are more visual learners is if you listen to EDM, any dance music, and really it's made its way into pop music, the side chain pumping sound that you hear on synths, basses, sometimes just the whole song, where the kick hits and everything basically mutes for a second and then swells back in. That is just a really extreme example of a super fast attack time and a really slow release time. Usually in dance music, you're going to time the release time to the tempo of the song. A lot of times it's on quarter notes or whatever. But so your release time is going to be locked into the tempo. You're going to give it a musical subdivision. There's a lot of plugins like this. There's Kickstart, Shaperbox, LFO Tool. There's even stock plugins that will do a similar thing that will let you draw a volume envelope. So you can see when the sound plays, every quarter note, what this is doing is the attack is squishing it super fast. You can make it basically instantaneous. And then this curve is showing you the release time over the length of a quarter note. Maybe the most important thing is to practice. Do this over and over again. Spend some time training your ear. Try it out on different sources. As you do this more and more often, your ear will just naturally gain the experience of knowing, like, this is what I want to happen to the sound. I want to emphasize the attack and I want to make the release not very noticeable, right? So slow attack, fast release. You're going to start to realize the connection between the way you want it to sound and how you can use a compressor to do that. Really, if you stick with this, get some reps in, you're going to start to notice a big difference in how you set your compressors, and it's going to stop being this like scary, mysterious thing. So let me know if this works for you. Come back in the comments. If it doesn't work for you, if it doesn't help, yell at me. I don't know. Don't yell at me. I'm just trying to help. Let me know. I'm always trying to get better at teaching this particular thing, again, because it's like so hard to learn and so hard to teach. So if you're having trouble with it, hang in there, don't give up, and give this a try. Let me know how it works.